These are only 6 slides, so bear with me. We'll zip through these in 3 minutes. This is a summary of all the proposed changes. Replace the exempt category with the excused category, and excused research would have the following characteristics. Expanded and clarified list of categories, would not require IRB review, just file it, and we'll audit you maybe. Would be subject to Health and Human Service regulations and oversight, would require registration with the institution and auditing by the institution. We would expand category B2 to include all research on competent adults, including personally identifiable information and sensitive data. Still excused, don't worry. Expand the excused category to include all data sets. This is the pre-existing data category. If the new initial consent standards are met at the time of collection and the study results are not returned to the participants. Okay, next. Expedited review. Create a federal panel to expand and clarify the categories on an ongoing basis, but drop the continuing review requirement for most expedited studies. Full board, drop the continuing review requirement if the only activity in the study is data analysis or routine clinical follow-up. This I love. This is a great idea. Long overdue. Unexpected problems and adverse events. The principal investigator still has to make a timely report of those and any proposed protocol changes to the IRB, but there'll be a federal collection and analysis of all those reports. And we'll learn great things from the federal analyzers. Multi-site studies require using a single IRB review for all domestic sites. Consent, revise the consent process and the forms. We might require verbal consent for some excused research studies. We might require some language, including boilerplate sections for common types of research. We're going to prohibit some language, especially if it has to do with your own institution. They don't want institutional language that's specific in consent forms. And limit the length of some sections in consent documents, because even the feds recognize a 50-page consent document is ridiculous. Next. Biospecimens require documented informed consent to collect, bank, or conduct research on human tissue specimens, and it applies to all clinical collections. Expand the coverage. We can extend the federal regulatory protections to all research, regardless of funding, if it's conducted at a U.S. institution that receives any funding from one of our agencies on human subjects research. Harmonization, improve the consistency of regulations and agency guidance for all common rule subscriber agencies, and there's now 17 of those. And so getting them all to use the same language, to write the same rules, good luck with that. Data security require that HIPAA privacy rule standards that define what is personally identifiable information, that define what a limited data set is, and that define what de-identification means, be applied to all research, regardless of whether the research was conducted as part of a HIPAA-covered entity, for all studies that involve identifiable or potentially identifiable data. And therefore, there's no IRB review needed of any informational risk for any study, because the HIPAA standards are taking care of that. For research involving personal identifiers, human biospecimens, and limited data sets, the security standards could require the use of encryption for archiving and transmitting in electronic form. So now everybody has to have either an encrypted hard drive on their laptop or an encrypted thumb drive for collecting all of the data for the research. If it's going to be transmitted electronically, if you're going to upload it to the server here, it's got to be transmitted in encrypted form. Strong physical safeguards for paper forms, audit trails, and access controls. This is like locked file cabinets in locked offices. Researchers are required to adhere to a breach notification standard. So you now have to have a procedure in case your data gets lost or corrupted or stolen or anything else. You have a protocol to follow to identify the people who were at risk and to notify them that there was a breach of your data security and what you're prepared to do in response. Researchers using limited data sets or de-identified information are strictly prohibited from attempting to re-identify the subjects of the information. And there's no IRB review of informational risk required, again. Limiting IRB creep. Now, yesterday when I did this open forum, and I tried to explain what IRB creep was, one of the researchers said, "I thought that's what people called you." Limiting IRB creep, the required reporting to the Department of Health and Human Services of any IRB protocol review upgrades. What they mean here is If according to these proposed revisions, this is eligible for excused category, and you decide to review it at expedited, you got to tell us, and you got to justify why you upgraded the review. If it qualifies for expedited, and you upgraded it to full board, you got to tell us why. You got to justify that upgrade. There's a very clear message here from the Fed saying get out of the researcher's way if it's not required by the regulations. The emphasis is to limit the autonomy of the IRB to creep or overreach its authority under the regulations, but it does allow independent institutional ethics review, which could be IRB based. The institution is free to say, we're going to require this additional look, but it's under our own authority as an institution, not under the authority of the federal regulations. Next.